I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I know it was a very last minute change of venue, and I'm very impressed with the amount of people that actually made it here, and I'm so praying that we don't have people still out there trying to find their way. I want to thank everybody for all of the cards and the gifts and the flowers, the texts and the telephone calls, a GoFundMe account that was set up for my family and I. The setup of all of this has been truly amazing. I can't believe how fast this got set up. Truly amazing. So thank you. And I appreciate everybody keeping masks on, and I just love that everybody's here to support Flow. I'd like to thank Jeff Preach and George Kezio from the Lions Club for securing the venue, the lake and this one, and providing the generator for the electricity and the tables and the chairs and the water and the soda and the coffee. I believe Steve Brown supplied for us. Blake Vizen and Kirk Powell is responsible for all of this beautiful setup. I certainly could never have done that. I want to thank the Crossroads Church for providing the projector and the cables and the mic stand. I especially, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank my son Zachary for all of his hard work on the cards that were passed out to everybody. We have more over here if you want to pick out a different one. They all have different pictures on the other side with a Flow quote. You may want to take one or two home for people who couldn't come to the memorial and give those to a friend or a family member. I'd like to thank Brad Huseman for providing the extra mask, as well as all of the meals that he brought to our house, which was absolutely incredible. And he also referred me to Blake Vizen, and Blake is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. If you got a crystal, not everybody would have gotten a crystal. We've got some more up here. Feel free to come and grab one. Those are crystals that Flo and I would often meditate with. So chances are, if you've got one of those, Flo has meditated with it at one time or another. The affirmations that were passed out were affirmations that Flo would have me make for him, and he would take it to his conferences, and he would put them on a little clip that had a star on it with the name of his company, and he would pass those out to all of the attorneys. The lanyards that were passed out, he had so many of those. We left them as they are. Those are to all the different conferences that he went to, whether it was AA or a business conference. Some were hockey games and some were music concerts. So if you were lucky enough to grab one of those, cherish that. Flo believed in every religion, and he honored all paths to God. He believed that every person is absolutely sacred and valuable. He believed that every person is on a spiritual journey that will ultimately lead to their greatest good. He believed that every person holds equal value in the eyes of God, regardless of religion, race, gender, sexual orientation, or any other worldly identification that tries to separate us. Flo and I believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of a universe that always says yes. And so it is. I need my boys to come up. Where's the other one? Why are you over there? I need both of you to take one of these. We're going to do a Flames of Faith little ceremony. You guys can just switch off. Just let one light as I do this. Okay. The candle is lit for the Tao to honor the universal path of harmony, the natural way. The candle is lit for the shamanic traditions, honoring the belief and practices of all indigenous people worldwide. The candle is lit for Hinduism to honor the path of devotion and the variety of religious icons and deities. The candle is lit for Judaism to honor the path of sacred law. Oh, okay. The candle is lit for Buddhism to honor the Four Noble Truths and the way of compassion. The candle is lit for Islam to honor the path of peaceful submission to the will of God. The path is lit for the universalistic religion of Baha'i to honor the path of unity. The path is lit for the faith of New Thought to honor the metaphysical path and the practice of universal spiritual principles. Like that. I did that one. And then finally, the last candle is lit for peace and for the peaceful acceptance of all faiths and spiritual practices worldwide. Flo used to say to me, like a tree we have grown from a sapling to something tall and something strong. We have given life to 2 boys who have become men. We have given life to my little business, he would say. We share abundance and a love for the universe that offers abundance. He was sure to tell me that he loved me every day. He gave the boys and I such an amazing life. It was always important to both of us to show each other in both words and actions how we felt. He often told me that he thanked God for me every single day. I could stand here and I could tell you story after story after story of Flo. He was certainly the heart of our family, but I'm not going to do that today. Anybody who knows us already knows the love of my family and what we carry for each other. I've heard so many negative comments about 2020 this year, and honestly, I have just the opposite reaction, despite losing the one person that I love most in this world. I stand here today filled with only gratitude for the gift that 2020 has given me. It gave me the gift of time. Those of you who know me well know that I believe that time is our absolute greatest commodity. I sign most of my cards, my notes, my emails at work with love the time. I believe that if we ignore the moment We commit the greatest crime against ourselves and the universe. The universe gives us these moments. What are you going to do with them? Will you invest in your moment, or will you waste it? The choice is yours. How could I ever be angry with the universe that would give me the gift of time? I was given a 5-month love bubble, and we loved every moment. We had dinner together every single night. We took sunrise morning bike rides. We took evening hikes. We walked the dogs through our neighborhood. We meditated together. We had lunches together at his office. Other times, he would bring me lunch to the house. We got a few weekend trips in to San Diego. We got to go to San Diego to set Zach up in an Airbnb before he got into his apartment. And we went back a few weeks later and we set him up in his apartment. A lot of you probably saw that video on Facebook. We spent the weekend in San Diego just a few days before he left this world, and it was absolutely perfect. We spent our evenings snuggled up on the couch together, watching Netflix and Amazon Prime TV shows. After dinner, he would always head to the couch and he would set a paper towel next to him. That was my cue to grab a raspberry juice bar from the freezer in the garage. He would set that juice bar on the paper towel and he'd let it melt just a little bit. My juice bar was already gone by the time he went to have his. He was really good at savoring a moment, even if it was just a juice bar. The day Flo went home to be with God, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I lived in a universe that was loving and kind. It has held me in its arms from the moment I had to say goodbye to Flo. There are so many ways that morning could have happened, and I am so grateful that Flo and I were in such alignment with one another that we were able to share the holiest of moments together. The universe saw to it that we saw one last sunrise come up together. The universe gave me one final photograph with him, and you can literally see the angels coming down to take him home. The universe gave me one final hug. The universe made sure that the person that I loved most in this world did not suffer one moment. Flo knew that in the last moment, he had only enough time to say one word, and I saw it in his eyes. He knew there wouldn't be enough time to say, "I love you." We'd called each other Mom and Daddy for years, and in that last moment, he chose to call me sweetie, a term of endearment we used when we were dating 31 years ago. That one word told me everything that I needed to know. The universe gave him that moment, thereby giving it to me. And so I say thank you. So yes, I stand here grateful for 2020. I am so sad that Flo was called home, and I know that my life will never be the same without him. I know there will never be a day for the rest of my life that I won't wake up and think about him and miss that smile and the sound of his voice in my ear. There will never be a day that I lie down and go to sleep and not say goodnight to him. I am so grateful for the time that I was given with him. I am grateful for every good time and even the times that didn't feel so good. I am grateful for every moment I shared with him because something good came from every single moment. I leave you with this message. Let the light be your example. When we go outside in the mornings, we are cognizant of a sun that is shining. We feel its warmth on our skin. That light doesn't choose who it's going to shine on today. That light doesn't shadow any one person or highlight any one individual. It will never decide to shine a dull light on some or to simply glimmer on others. The light does not play favorites. It gives itself a light to all of us. Hafiz was a 14th century poet, and he wrote a poem called "The Sun Never Says," And it goes like this. Even after all this time, let me start over. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. My wish for all of you today is that if you have been living this life with a closed heart, that you will open it today. That you will call your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your friend, and convey how much they mean to you. Don't allow words of love to go unsaid. Life is too uncertain. Our egos think we hold control of circumstances. I assure you we don't. There is no promise of another moment for any of us. I know. I feel like I already had a good grasp on the value of time. I often tell people to not chase the money, just love the time. My experience with Flo at the top of that hill a month ago only solidified my belief that time is our greatest commodity. If there is anyone in your life that has been estranged from you for whatever the reason, offer up that olive branch today. Don't wait. Reach out to them and tell them how not important the differences between you are. Tell them you don't want that to come between you anymore. And I know that isn't always easy to do. Our human side listens to our egos. We edge God out of the equation. Our egos want to convince you that the other person is wrong and bad for believing the way they do or behaving the way they did. Our ego wants to say, I am right and you are wrong. Flo would ask you this: do you want to be ego-driven the rest of your life? Or do you want to be guided by spirit? He would say, do you want to be self-righteous? Or do you want to love people? If we've learned anything from August 19th, 2020, it's that life is too short to let anything come between us and loving ever again. We all came into this world with a heart full of love. And it's time to have the courage to let that love out, even when you don't understand the other person's behavior. If we will all have the courage to let out the love and love others anyway, we will be making a great contribution to the healing of this world. And God knows the world needs healing. And up next is my youngest heir to the throne. That would be Zachary. Where is Zachary? I'm having a hard time noticing you today. I'm really sorry. It's the mask. It blends in with your skin. So, anyway, you do your thing.
Test, test. Does that sound good?
Good, bro.
Okay. I'm gonna start with the obvious. Dad's the best person I know. And you know, when most people say that about their parent, they're blowing smoke. But I get to have a straight face on my, I get to have a straight words. I get to put a straight face on when I say that. Dad is the best guy I've ever had the privilege of getting to know, and as long as I can remember, he's been my superhero. I based my entire personality off of his. In a long game of monkey see, monkey do. I mean, look at him. Helping hundreds of people in LA, bettering the Lions Club year by year, Thanksgiving at the Senior Center, Friends of the Lake, Town Council, Castaic High School, his own successful business, and much more. As a group, there's 1,000 major deeds we can all name, and 10,000 anecdotes we can all give. And I've been told so many times that God broke the mold after making your dad. and I've always wanted to be just like him. Dad gave me everything I needed growing up. Food, money, responsibility, work experience, moral lessons. There's only one thing I wanted more from him, and I think a lot of you can relate to me on this. I wanted time. He was always on to the next thing, always getting another phone call, always fulfilling another promise, always helping another person. Someone told me recently that Flo's minutes were longer than our minutes, and don't I know it. Watching him in his element was like watching an artist at work. Helping people brightening their day was like breathing to him. It came so naturally. But he was still human. And even with the best dad in the world who went so far out of his way to give his sons time through coaching Little League, bringing us along for community service, taking us on vacations, and a dozen other things, he was always so busy that I never felt I got enough time with him. I started a new job in March, 2 days after my birthday. It's the start of my career, and it's my dream job. Dad supported me all the way through whatever I wanted to do, and he did his best in assisting me in improving myself on the 8 or so random career choices I had before deciding what I landed on. He sent me to acting classes with Barry. He introduced me to industry professionals like Chris. He bought me books, and I think in the end he was ecstatic about where I landed. The weekend I started my job, and a few weekends since, he and my mother came down, gave me words of encouragement, expressed their pride, and showed me I was loved. And then, work kicked my butt. The rub is I love my job. I really love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love the game I'm working on, and I got caught up in it. I was too busy and too focused to notice. I was too busy and too focused to notice the incredible gift COVID had offered me. Time with my dad. He called me with Mom every night, and I didn't always answer. They'd leave me a message singing Cats in the Cradle and telling me they loved me. And if I did answer, I was almost always busy, working, or helping my own group of friends, my own set of guys I worry about. And I kept the conversation short. In the end, I didn't give my dad enough of something he wanted from me. Time. I really am my father's son. I feel like Dad's creation in that sense. He wasn't always with me, but he tinkered with me. He would show me what to do by example, wind me up, and let me move on my own for a while. After some missteps, I'd come back to him. We took notes, made some adjustments, and I went on my way again. I think the barometer for how amazing a tinkerer and how amazing a father he is isn't just going to be how I acted while he was around, but how well I move forward now that he's not here to fix me anymore. Did I follow his example? Am I a good reflection of Flo Lawrence? I know there's an astronomical number of you that relied on my dad in some way. And I know each one of you are reacting and grieving in your own completely valid style. I would never judge you, and my dad especially wouldn't, for not being at your best for a long time. But something my dad would probably never admit, and I'd really push, is that he deserves the world. Dad deserved so much, and I don't think the world ever quite gave him the good he was due. And I'm not crazy. I know he had a fantastic life, but he should have got so much more. With that in mind, to those of us who relied on him, those of us who feel left behind, as far as I can tell, there's one more thing we can do for ourselves and for Dad. Do good by him. In the words he said to me the first day of my job, make friends, work hard, have fun, help others. Be it today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, however long it takes us, we can follow those words. We can do the next right thing. And we can do good by him. He wanted nothing more in the world than for you and your loved ones' happiness. Don't let the effort he put into you go to waste. Please be a good reflection upon Flo Lawrence. We own at least that much. And Dad, I really wish I said this to you more while I had the chance. But I respect you more than any person on this planet. Whether you'd acknowledge it or not, you were the best of all of us. An incredible, incredible guy. I miss you to pieces. I love you like a father. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out here today. It's pretty incredible to see the response, especially given the current circumstances in 2020. My dad was a lot of things. Mainly to me, he was a father and a coach and a mentor. Growing up, I have some friends here today that I played sports with growing up, and he was my coach for most of those teams. And he was always someone that I hung out with and looked up to. And he's always, I remember when I played baseball, I would go across the street and stand on the driveway across from our house, and I would pitch to him. And he didn't have any catcher's gear, and so I would hit him in the shin a lot, and it probably messed him up a little bit. But from anything I did, whether it was basketball, soccer, he was my coach, and he did everything he could to support me and give me the best possible chance at succeeding. Growing up, I've always known that my dad has known a lot of people. I have countless memories of people coming up to me, telling me they recognize me and that you're Flo's kid, right? And then they mix me and my brother up. But everyone that would come up to me, they would always tell me how amazing my dad was. And that was something that I heard often. And as I've gotten older, I've started to realize how ingrained giving back was in his lifestyle. A lot of my favorite memories are from volunteering at events like Junior Lifeguards or helping park cars. I think some friends here today, we all talked about how we were parking cars back here and it kind of reminded us of parking cars at the lake for July 4th, where we'd have to direct cars, and it was just something we got to do and hang out with. I could picture myself shopping with him in Smart and Final, getting hot dog buns and soda for the junior lifeguards. My dad didn't have a father growing up. He didn't have a blueprint. But through AA and other clubs and giving back, he's talked about how by doing all that, he puts himself out of the way, and that you guys have taught him how to be a father. So I want to thank you guys, because you guys helped give me the best dad ever. And that means a lot. He was the person where whenever something went wrong and I would have no idea what to do, I could call him and he could, give me some starting steps or any advice on that. I'm sure there's a lot of people in here that can relate to that. I miss him a lot. I really wish he was here. I relate to Zach where I wish I was the quiet one. I didn't talk a lot, but he was just fun to observe, and you would get caught up in it. I could listen to him speak for hours and hours and, never get bored. I love you, Dad. I miss you, and I'll see you on the other side.
I regret that I couldn't put it on my phone, but I'm way too old and way too blind for that. I wish I was a millennial. Thank you all for coming. My name is Barry Papik, and I know Phil for 46 years. We were roommates in college. The soul of a man resembles the water. It descends from the heaven, and it returns to the heaven. And down to earth it must return, forever changing. The soul of a man, how like the water, the fate of a man, how like the wind. Johann Wolfgang Goethe. I'm going to try and keep this short and tear-free. I can promise the beginning, I can't promise the end. Flo is like a brother to me, my closest friend. I once told Flo that we were more like brothers than friends, but I was wrong. We were both. I knew him for 46 years, a lifetime to a lot of you. We stuck 90 years in that 46 years. We lived together in dorm rooms, apartments, and houses. We went to over 100 concerts together, from Syracuse to Red Rocks to Los Angeles. And he woke me up at the appropriate time when it was a good song or time to clap. We talked often, even though we were both crazy busy. And he supported everything I did, even though most of it was stupid. We moved to LA together after driving around the United States for 2 truly dysfunctional months. We moved to Los Angeles a long, long time ago. I was the best man at his wedding. One reason I left LA was because I didn't want to see Flo crash and burn. But he fooled me. He got sober and helped hundreds of other people get sober. Two stories come to mind. The first one was I saw him at the Baja Cantina when he was behind the bar. And he was bartending and he was handing out cards. And the card said, if you want to drink, that's your business. And if you want to stop, that's mine. And they had his phone number on every card. He wanted to help anyone who needed help. And that brings me to my second story. I had a friend, a close friend who was in trouble. And I told Flo about him. And he got in his car and he drove for 2 hours. And he met my friend for a cup of coffee. And he didn't even know him. He did it for me. And he did it because of the person that he was. That's who he was. Flo asked me to give him multiple chips and multiple cakes over the years. And no one in that room was prouder than me. Except for the stories that he would always tell, were the stories about how he and I got fucked up together. I have a million stories, but I don't want to bore you with them. I will say, I don't think I'll ever get over this. And like all of you, I will miss Flo. Flo always said how much I taught him, but the truth was, I was the student. I was always the student. But Goita plunge boldly into the thick of life and seize it where you will. It is always interesting. And the one thing I can say about Flo is he was always interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, Zach, Luke, for letting me participate in this. I know any one of you guys out here can come up and share stories of what Flo did and how Flo helped you and how Flo changed your life in some way or taught you something. I think, like Barry is saying, Flo was like a brother. I met Flo at a meeting called Kelton in Santa Monica 32 years ago. I think I was his first sponsee. And I don't think he's really sponsoring people at the time, but my roommate that was my angel that brought me in there, her sister was in the program. And they were both models. And they went to this meet because I couldn't get a sponsor. So they went up to Flo and told Flo that they were going to sponsor me. And Flo wasn't going to say no because these two beautiful women told him that you got to sponsor that guy. And he became my sponsor. And I remember the first thing what Flo taught me, I'm not the reader like a lot of these people are that know the book and all this. He gave me on-the-job training. He says, I want you to call 5 people every day and you will form a group around you. And you call them every day and tell them where you're going to go and all this stuff. And I just followed his directions. And our life went really fast. He needed a roommate, and I had a job, so he moved me into his house on Glencoe way back. This is before even Susan and Flo got married, and we were roommates. So he was working at the Baja Cantina, and I started coming home with hockey tickets. So Flo and I was taking them to these hockey games, and being the good alcoholics we were, before that first season ended, that's how Flo and I started, and we had season tickets at the Forum for the last 4 years, and we were obsessed. And every away game, I was probably my first year of sobriety, I'd be hanging out at the Baja Cantina drinking coffee all night as we watched the game. It's not really the best way a sponsor's supposed to work with a sponsee, but it worked for us. We didn't do everything correctly at the beginning. We were kind of out of control. So being we just did anything and everything. And I started rollerblading. So Flo started rollerblading. So in a 6 month period, we got hockey gear and we joined an adult hockey league. We were terrible. We sucked. But we did it. And we did. And I mean, I'd score a goal, knock over the goalie. Flo skated like he was a little old lady. I mean, we were terrible. But we accomplished all these different things we did. And then Flo was dating Susan at the time and all that. And they moved to the back house. And they got married. And I was in the wedding behind Barry in the wedding. And we were just having a lot of good time growing and learning life. And just doing what was in front of us, growing as brothers, just trying things. And Susan and Flo had Lucas, and I kind of took a hostage, and I had my son, or I didn't have him, but my wife had my son Michael, and she's from up here in Santa Clarita. She went to Saugus way back when, and I grew up in Pacific Palisades. So all of a sudden she moved me way out here, and we bought a place that had a pool. And Susan and Flo every weekend would come up to our house because we had a pool, and taught Luke how to swim, and we'd hang out every weekend. And Flo and Susan, as you know, Flo was always going 90 miles an hour and all that kind of stuff. They would leave Luke because we had a little kid, and they'd go on their journeys and came back. And after a year of that, in 94, at the end of 94, Castaic was just lit up with all these buy houses out here. Susan talked Flo into buying a house out here. So they followed me up here and all this stuff. But Flo kept on going to meetings on the west side. I was just too lazy and all this stuff. And, you know, I just was so privileged to have Flo I was a part of him. I mean, he'd always say, take your shopping cart back. What did you do to make somebody's day better? Every day. Get out of yourself and make somebody have a better day. Call 10 people. What are you doing for somebody else? In and out of the program, he didn't care. There's always time, and Flo would go all over the place, and he was always hard to get a hold of. And I formed my own gang of how he taught me how to do it, and a lot of them are here, and I love them to death and all this stuff. And I don't do Facebook. I don't do the internet. I don't do any of that stuff. And when Flo passed away, my phone blew up like crazy. And I got phone calls so quickly because they all wanted to tell me what was going on because I wouldn't find out in Facebook and all that stuff. And you know what? What's really strange is I'm going to miss him. But Flo's in me. I do what Flo's taught me over the 32 years, no matter what. He took care of my kids. I have one kid that's still doing stuff up north, and he's living in a car. And I wouldn't send my son money. I threw him out on the street. Flo would still send that kid money to help him on his stuff. And that kid, 15 minutes after I found out that Flo passed away, the kid's living in a car. He calls me. He goes, that can't be true. What happened to Flo? And this is a little drug addict kid that Flo took care of when he was this size as Luke, all the way up. Even when my son is in full disease, he was totally, could not believe what was going on. But I have so much people that care about me, and that's what Flo gave me. I don't know how this works. I don't care how it works. But I got so much love, and it was just because of what Flo taught me how to act. Taught me at the very beginning. Make somebody's day better. Reach out. You have time to help people, as Susan was saying. You have time. I was raising 3 boys by myself and all this stuff, and Flo had all the season tickets at the Staples Center. And the Kings were making it to the Stanley Cup. And he always made sure I went to some games, but he calls me up. He goes, Brad, it won't be right going to a Stanley Cup without you. And he'd buy me tickets so I'd be at the Stanley Cup with him. And he gave tickets to my sons. And he gave tickets to many people out here. I know how he was. But that's how he was. And that's how Flo wants us to be. We need to just slow down and help each other. We have time. This has all slowed us down. This disease or this pandemic or whatever they want to call it. It's given us time to think. And we just stick together and help each other. We're not in a hurry. Stop thinking about ourselves, like the program says, and give people time. And I'll do the best of my ability to what Flo's taught me over the 32 years. You know, I mean, one last thing I just say, Flo went through his divorce and he's best friends with his ex-wife. I went through a divorce and it didn't work out that well. And I was all confused on what to do, but Flo went to it. Flo goes, it's easy. You just give her everything and whatever's left over is yours. And I'm sitting there going, am I allowed to ask for like the TV? You know, and he's going, you can ask for the TV, but the rest is whatever she gives you is yours. You know, and it was trying, but I went through my divorce pretty good. You know, I don't have the relationship that Flo and Susan had, but you know what? I'm not Flo. Flo's by himself. I just got pieces of Flo in me that I cherish, and I know because I have a lot of people that act like Flo around me, and I'm so grateful. You just say, and there's probably, I don't even know how many other people are listening on Zoom and stuff, but this is amazing. But this is how it should be for Flo, because he had time for everybody. And thank you.
This thing's getting a little soggy. First, want to thank everybody who put this beautiful event together. I cannot believe that I pulled up here only getting the text that it was moving 15 minutes later, and everything was set up and everybody was like moving and making things happen. It's just an absolute amazing testament to the power of the people that he touched and the love that he had and everyone had for him. My name is Lucas, and I had the honor of knowing Flo through AA. He was my sponsor, a father figure, and a great friend. As many of you know, Flo was a funny dude. I didn't even know his real name was Alan until a few years into our friendship, when he handed me a deposit check for a sober retreat, and a small thought popped into my head. Did he steal this from a family member? Was he running from the law under an alias? He later told me Flo was a nickname given to him by some greaser friends in high school, I think. He said it just stuck over the years, and I took his word for pretty much all of it. And he turned out to be one of the most influential people in my life. I've never been comfortable speaking publicly, so me even standing here is a testament to how much I love that man and how much I've grown having had the opportunity to work with him. Flo was a busy man. He had time for everyone and everything. His community, a family, a rich social life, a successful business, and a bunch of crazy alcoholics in recovery. Somehow he managed to do it all. I think all of us had the same question on our mind. Where was he hiding the time machine? He really never wasted a moment. I've never been a big sports guy, and I don't think I've ever heard a Grateful Dead song. Sorry, Jimmy. He and I bonded over our passion for helping others. Flo was a very persuasive guy, and I somehow got roped into many of the charity events he would organize, which usually required me to wake up at like 4 a.m. and pick up supplies or people or whatever he needed. which at that time of my life I had never even seen the sunrise, intentionally at least. Flo was the guy to always push me out of my comfort zone, which turned out to be one of the greatest areas of growth in my life. After 14 years of our friendship, Flo continued to inspired me to give back, which is a core element of our recovery program, giving away what was so freely given to us. I think this is where Flo was the brightest spot in all of our lives. Thanks to Flo's forceful inspiration, I've helped wrangle people into retreats, taught horticultural therapy classes, started my own sober retreat, had a weekly meeting in my home for the last 10 years, hosted and organized large fellowship gatherings, all very different events from the trajectory I was on prior to our paths crossing. And I now understand why he did it all. I've been given unique perspectives, lifelong, meaningful relationships. I've been able to follow my passions and my dreams, and I have never felt more fulfilled in my whole life. All because that man stuck his hand out to me at the treatment center and invited me to come join us. Flo loved the history of AA. He loved Bali. He loved good food. That's a lie. He loved unhealthy garbage. He loved his sponsees, and he deeply loved his family. He loved sharing everything he had with everyone. He loved sharing everything he had with everyone. And he loved using speakerphone and merged calls. Honestly, that man's phone etiquette was deplorable. I recall many occasions calling him up in a desperate panic, spilling my guts about something extremely embarrassing right off the bat to the phone, only having him answer back saying, "Lucas, say hi to Chris Carlson and Bobby G, you're on speaker." And everybody would burst into laughter. It happened a lot. And although I may not have loved the way he took calls, he always picked up. He was probably one of the most reliable people in my life. We had a 3 or 4 hour Zoom AA share a few weeks ago during Flo's beloved Saturday morning beach meeting. This particular meeting was his baby. I believe he started it 20 years or so ago. For the AA history buff, this was his big book study group to share his passion and experience with new people. Our typical meeting of maybe 15 to 20 guys multiplied to almost 100, and we took turns sharing memories and moments with Flo. Leave it to Flo to become a celebrity in a club meant to be anonymous. But it was so nice to hear how he had impacted so many lives and been really such a leader. I was nervous and processing everything at the time, and while I weirdly decided to tell an embarrassing story about Flo and Susan trying to get Lucas laid on prom night. So, to balance out the sibling embarrassment, oh, you remember, I know you remember. I have a funny story about Flo and Zach. Now you're on the hook. We were in Utah on the retreat I mentioned earlier. 15 alcoholics packed into a van. I was driving and Flo was sitting next to me when Zach called him. Like I said, Flo loved taking calls on speaker, so of course he took the call that way, without letting Zach know he had an audience. Zach asked Flo for some money to buy a new controller for his PlayStation, to which Flo replied, "Isn't that girlfriend of yours controlling enough?" There was what seemed like a lifetime of silence that Zach finally broke by saying, "Well, you're on speaker, and she's sitting right next to me here in my car, and I don't think she liked that very much." Like father, like son. That was maybe the first and only time I saw Flo's face turn beet red with embarrassment. The van erupted in laughter, and Flo made his amends off speaker. I loved that he was human and made mistakes. It made him more tangible as a mentor. He would always make amends if he ever caught himself doing something that wasn't aligning with his moral compass. He gave me and countless others the tool and inspiration to do the same. I texted Flo almost every night. And all I would say is going to bed sober. And the best part of this tradition is that he would text me back sometimes and say, "Me too." And in doing so, he gave me one of the greatest gifts in this world. And I wasn't doing this alone. and I never had to again. I want to thank you, Flo. You've given me and countless others direction in life, and I will do my best to follow in your footsteps. You are a real-life legend, and although you may be gone, your impact in all of our lives will never be forgotten.
Hey, it's Alec Baldwin. I wanted to take a moment to, first of all, send my condolences to Lucas and Zach and Susan. Flo was, as some people know, someone I met a long time ago in Washington, where we were acquaintances when we went to college. I didn't know him that well, but I knew him, and he was exactly the same in many ways back then as he was many years later, 40-something years later, when he passed away. But we reconnected in California a while after we left Washington, probably in the mid-'80s, 87, 86, I don't remember, somewhere around that time. And we reconnected on the streets of Westwood. We ran into each other and we were like, hey, and he went, hey. And we have remained in contact since then. If I knew him I probably didn't see him for 10 years. I probably left GW in 1978. And, 8 or 9 years later, I ran into him in California, and we stayed in touch ever since and became very good friends. And whenever I would go back out to LA after I left LA in 2000, I lived out there off and on for several years. And then when I relocated back to New York, and I'd come to LA, and whenever I was in LA, he was one of the handful of people that I would reach out to have dinner and spend time with, and someone I considered a very, very dear friend. It's almost impossible in the world today, I think, and I won't dwell on this, but with social media and the way we live today, where people are asked to make many, many judgments in a very condensed amount of time, make many, many decisions, and to try to understand many, many things that affect them or don't affect them in a very brief window of time. And in that world of hasty decisions, it's almost impossible to be someone, I find, that everyone is fond of, that everyone looks forward to seeing, that everyone likes or loves, and always enjoys their company and never has a single negative thing to say about them. That's an impossible thing today to pull off, I find. I find that, Mother Teresa has got people who are sitting there going, well, she really, and then they try to undercut her in some way. But that was Flo. That was Flo. There's the only other person I ever met like that. I married my wife, Ilaria, somebody who nobody has an unkind thing to say about. Nobody has a negative thing to say about. They always make everyone feel welcome, warm. He and I had even deepened our friendship in the last several months because of the COVID, because we were doing this online chats with some friends of ours, and we got together every Monday and every Friday to talk online. And when I heard the news about what happened, I was really stricken. I was very stricken because there aren't a lot of people like him around. There just aren't. And I don't need to explain that to his family. They know what Flo was all about. So my love to the three of you, to all of his other friends who are grieving this strange and tragic loss, taken too soon, for sure. And I just want to say I'm glad I knew him, and I'm glad he was my friend. I think what a wonderful opportunity for me. What a wonderful gift for me to be able to say that Flo was my friend, my dear friend who I loved deeply, and he was a really special guy. So my thoughts are with all of you, and stay safe.
Hello all, aloha. My name is Stephen T. I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. I was blessed to have Flo as my sponsor. Susan, Lucas, and Zach is the family Flo loved with all, if not more, of his heart. May 30th, Susan's birthday, he never missed sending her tons of flowers. Susan told me on a phone call that Flo would always say to her, "I have no problems, just a lot of shit to deal with." He was a man of his own word. He was a king among peasants, but he wouldn't want me to say that. So I will say he was humble and forgiving, knew all too well about not holding onto resentments and how that played into the human psyche. You see, he was not only dealing with life on life's terms, but dealing with life on other people's terms. He had a sixth sense, always seemed to get through with a profound knowledge of the program and how it works. He asked me to call him every night and tell him I hadn't had a drink or drug. If we were in Russia, he'd say, "Leave a message then." He had an ear for me. If I had issues, and let me say touring with a band for 40 plus years, there was some shit going down. Flo always had the just right answer, which pissed me off sometimes. Here I was thinking I was the deputy director of the universe, and he would shut me down in 5 words or less. He'd say that was his gift to me, and then tell me to go to a meeting. That brought my terminal uniqueness to a screeching halt. And the words of Mark Nepo, a dear friend of mine, says it best from his Book of Awakening. He says, "As the moon brings sun to those turned from the light, the opened heart brings love to those struggling through darkness." It is important to remember here that the moon is not the source of light, but a reflection, and likewise as magnificent as the heart is, it is not the source of love, but a conveyor of forces often out of view when we are struggling. It was Flo's openness that allowed him to shine in the middle of our darkness and openness. Flo is in my heart forever. And now he's got me thinking twice, once for Flo and once for me, to love and be grateful, to always pass on the message of how it was before and how it is now. And by the grace of God, say with me the serenity prayer. God grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I love you, Flo, forever.
Hi, I'm Norm Coe, and I'm with Castaic Lions. And something exciting just happened to me. We were watching Alec Baldwin over there on the video, and my wife turns to me, "Karen, can you raise your hand, please?" She turns to me and says, "Sweetie, you're a lot better looking than that guy." Before we start, there's 3 things before we get going. The first thing I wanted to say was that had to, Zach, there you go, brother. I really did appreciate what you had to say tonight. But beyond that, I do. You said one thing. Your dad didn't get as much as he deserved. That is not true. In this world, to be loved is a tremendous thing and not a common thing. And your dad was really, really, really loved. Your dad also had one other thing too. He had the respect of his son, and his son honored him. And that's big in this world. It's not that common either. For you, Lucas, you brought up something. Okay, so in the Lions Club, before Flo came along, this shows Flo's genius. Okay, we would have to go and park cars in July to make the money to do the good things we do. And we would charge like $5, and we'd be out there, it'd be 105 on July 4th. And we'd be spending our July 4th out in a parking lot that was like that dirt one you see right out there. Well, Flo becomes a member. The next year that he becomes a member, he says, wait a minute, why are you guys out there parking cars? Let's just hire Lucas and his buddies, and they'll do it for us for $10 an hour. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is genius. The genius that we never, no Lion would ever thought of, because we were saving the $10. But that's the kind of guy that bringing him into the club was great. But by the way, before we go on, there's a guy back there. Preach, would you raise your hand, please? Just do it. All right. Jeff and Terry Preach, they provide this. Look at how fast they did it. That's what the Lions Club does. You got a problem? At a moment. That's good. That was Flo too. You guys all know that in other ways. The last thing I want to tell you before we get going is, and I don't want to hurt any moose or elk's feelings out there, but here's the thing. The Lions Club is a service organization. That's what we do, is serve people. We're not a drinking organization, and that is absolutely one of the reasons why Flo felt so comfortable being part of our club, and brought, just like he's brought to all you guys out there, he brought tremendous things to our club, and we're going to talk about him in a moment. I think that now we can get started. The Lions Club asked me to present a little something about Flo tonight on behalf of the Lions. When we look back at Flo today, what he is the consummate Lion. On the day of Flo's death, Louis Diaz, are you still out here? Louis? Raise your hand, brother. So Louis writes for like a local kind of news blog. And so he called us, my wife and I, up, and he asked us to just, give one line about our thoughts about Flo and his passing. And my wife Karen, who you've already met, she worked on this with me, and here's what we came up with. What Flo really knew how to do better than just about anybody else was love. The love that expresses itself by serving others with kindness and compassion. By serving others with kindness and compassion. And that you folks have experienced in spades out there. Here today, we remember Flo as continually showing us in the way he lived his life that he was a servant. He was a servant as a husband. He was a servant as a father. And he was a servant to this community. And he was a servant to that other community, the AA community as well. And he was a man who didn't look forward to reward or recognition or even a thank you. That was Flo. He served. On the day of Flo's death, I wrote the following to my 4 children who, they're all now adults, but they've all worked with Flo on his events and the Castaic Lions events, and particularly our food drives and Thanksgiving at the Senior Center. So they all knew Flo, and one of the things I wrote to Flo, to my children about was, I said, Flo was the most reasonable, common sense, down-to-earth person that I've ever met. And I admired him greatly. I appreciated that kind of person. Because that's the kind of person who gets things done. Just like Preach today. Down to earth, we're here. Because that's the kind of guy that Flo was as well. And then I then wrote this to my children, and in particular to my son Matt, he's been sober now for 19 years through the program, and he's taken his sobriety seriously every day, like I just heard from you tonight. I really appreciate what you had to say. And I said this to Matt. I really feel, as much as anybody I've ever met, that Flo attempted to truly live out the 12 steps of AA. I think you guys, many of you, might agree with that as well. In my experience is maybe more limited than yours. But I did see him as a man without hypocrisy. He didn't talk the talk. He walked those 12 steps every day. And I saw it. We all saw it. Here in Castaic, and you folks who mostly aren't from Castaic saw it as well. And here's what my son Matt wrote back to me. He said, acting reasonably and being down to earth are things that Flo either strove to be or were imbued in him through the program. Regardless, embodying those things and your recognition of those things are a true testament to how seriously Flo took and understood Alcoholics Anonymous. Flo would feel quite complimented that you felt that way about him. Moreover, the most damaging thing to the alcoholic is selfishness and self-centeredness. So the most important thing for the alcoholic is to serve others selflessly. That was Flo. For the affected alcoholic in recovery, the greatest and most rewarding way to do this is to extend the lifeline of hope by sharing one's common suffering, illustrating that there is a way back and out of the despair that accompanies alcoholism. And I think as we're here today, and as I heard from you, he helped you out of that despair. That's huge. That's huge. So for Flo, the clear and obvious way to serve was to serve others the way Christ served, with love and compassion, and with the joy of serving, and with only the joy of serving as motivation. Father, you knew these things about Flo, which means you knew Flo. And others out there knew these same things about Flo, and that means that you also, like I, knew Flo. That is another thing I can tell you was important to Flo, and something he would have been proud of. We need to be transparent. We need to be known. We need to be honest and intimate. And we need our actions to be the truest representation of our innermost selves. Flo took those things very seriously. And you honor Flo by recognizing those things in him. Things that took some of the hardest work Flo ever put forth in order to attain. I can speak loud if I need to. All right. And again, that's why I appreciated what you had to say so much. Then my son Matt wrote this last few words. Your words about your friend Flo mean more to this alcoholic than even you may be aware of. I thank you for them, and I am sorry for your loss. And most of all, I am sorry for AA's loss, because Flo understood that this thing only perpetuates itself if we continue to do for others what someone once did for us.
I know that Flo felt as I do. We pay it forward because we are indebted. And the only way to square that debt is by continuing to pay it forward. Flo's debt was probably paid long, long ago. But either Flo didn't feel that way or he didn't care. Either way, I find both things to be quite admirable in him. Now, my wife Karen and I then wrote, and it was actually Karen, I apologize. She wrote this final truth back to our children about Flo, and that was this. She said, "We both loved and respected Flo, and we were both deeply saddened by his passing. The Lions Club will never be the same. In fact, the community of Castaic and the entire Santa Clarita Valley will never be the same." This day, to Susan and Luke and Zach, Flo's beloved family, the Castaic Lions, and all of the Coe family, say thank you for all your husband and your father has done for each of us and for this community that we love. Amen. Amen.
My name's Jimmy Cohn, and Flo would love this event. He ought to be the one speaking here. And what he'd like to tell everybody was come hang out. And so I'm grateful to be here. I'm honored. Susan, thank you so much. Boys, Lucas and Zach, I'm honored to kind of open up this open mic little period we're going to do. Everyone's going to get a minute. I have some people on a list here. 1 minute. It's not about us. It's about the people that have already shared, and it's about Flo. So there's a bunch of people that I think would like to say something in a minute, and all I'm going to say is this. Flo will always be the target for me. He was the most loving and tolerant. You all have said it so beautifully, every one of you. And Norm, thank you so much. That was beautiful. You know, I always say that the biggest room in my place is the room for improvement. I will never be as loving and as tolerant as Flo was. But I'm going to shoot for it for the rest of my life. So I love you all. And Suzanne, where are you? Come here, babe. And after Suzanne, we're going to go with Christina. So go ahead and stand up here, because it is 1 minute. Give us your best shot.
Hi, my name is Suzanne. I was honored, as all of you have been, to be Flo's friend. And he was my best male friend. It was the first time I had a relationship with a man for a long period of time who was not a romantic partner. And he taught me a lot. I remember the joy that I would feel every time he walked into a room. You know, it was visceral. And his incredible love for you, Susan, and his love for his kids. And I'm lucky to have known him. You know, I'm better because I knew him. There's a prayer of St. Francis that a lot of people know, right? St. Francis Assisi. And one of the lines is, "Where there's discord, let me bring harmony." And this, I think, was Flo's greatest gift, is that everywhere he went, he brought harmony. And he taught me so much. That's it. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Christina. This is Jeremy, and we are with People Hunter, Flo's business, his company. I'll try to make this quick. I'll try to make it 1 minute. I just wanted to say that he was an amazing person. He was an amazing boss. He was amazing to all of his employees, and you know, there's a saying that goes, you never know what you've got until it's gone. And after losing him, someone so very close to all of us, I can't help but cringe at that statement. It's painful that it took him dying for me to really, truly realize how much he meant to not only me, but to everybody around him. And I feel like I can speak for everybody at People Hunter when I say Flo was the greatest boss that anyone could ever have and ask for. He would put his employees' happiness before anybody else's, and he would make sure that everyone was taken care of. It didn't matter if it was midnight. It did not matter if it was 2 a.m. If you had a problem, he was there. If you needed to call him, he was there, and he will answer your phone call if he was not busy. Even though he was hard at times when we were working, I remember I had to close like 100 cases in 2 days, and he was on my ass 24/7 on my ass. And he told me that if I could not close those cases in 2 days because they had a deadline, there would be issues. Oh my gosh, I was scared shitless, but I closed them. And after Friday happened, I wanted to quit because of how much stress he put me under. But I closed them. I learned a lot from him, and I will continue, everybody at People Hunter will continue to keep his legacy going and have his company strive. And it's going to keep going forever and ever and ever. We are not going to let him down. That was his baby. Besides Susan, Zach, and Lucas, that was one of his biggest babies ever. And it's going to be going. And we're not going to let it go down at all. He was amazing. We love him. We miss him. And, you know, he will always be with us.
I'm a little too shy, but thanks for everybody for coming. Love you all.
Hi, folks. My name is Tom Barrett. I'm Flo's cousin, and I guess I was supposed to be up here earlier, but didn't quite get the memo. Oh, no, that's all right. No worries. I've got a couple notes, and actually, I'm not one of the 1 minute ones, so bear with me a little bit. I know you've been sitting a while, but wow, what a bunch of great stuff, Susan. What you said, oh my God, Zach, Luke, you guys, you reflect, oh man, you move me as well as everybody else. Barry, folks from AA, you know, Lucas, the other Lucas. Wow, you guys, you moved me. Anyway, I wanted to share a little bit of. Can you hear me? Okay, am I? Yes. Okay. Just of family history from the Lawrence side, because that's where I fit in with Flo. And I'm also here kind of on, and that's why I'm going to go quite a bit over a minute, because I'm kind of, Susan asked me to kind of talk on behalf of all my siblings and all the Lawrence people and my siblings. I got a bunch. I got brothers Mike, Dennis, Dave. I got sisters Judy, Kathy, Ann. There's a whole nother group of cousins, the Lawrence Richardsons that Flo is very close to. I've only kept in touch with Robin, but I want to give a shout out to them because they're big in Flo's life, likewise. And you know, then there's extended family, my wife and kids, my siblings, spouses, and their kids, in-laws, kids, other cousins. And I'm going to go through everyone, but no, I'm just kidding. Because Susan said I have to be done by midnight, so I'm going to try and achieve that goal. I'm going to light up things here because it's a little darker than I anticipated being. So bear with me 1 second because I have a few notes. So quick family history. Our grandparents, Alvin and Mary Lawrence, they were in Maine. They lived in Maine. They had 3 daughters. Flo's mom, Ellie, and her twin sister, Dottie, were 2, and my mom, Virginia, was the younger sister. So the 3 girls. Oh, wonderful, thank you. Dottie had 6 kids. My mom had 7 kids. Ellie had 1, and I think after Flo came out, she said, "Nailed it." And she was done. Okay, she only needed to do that once. 9 days later, after Flo's birth, that's when I showed up. So he and I were pretty close in age. We didn't meet at the time. Our moms lived a couple states apart. So it took a few years for us to get to know each other, but I like to think that, there's a pretty special connection there. There is a special connection, I don't have to think. We didn't get to meet Alan, because that's how we knew until he and I were 10 years old. My family had moved from Maine to the San Francisco Bay Area, and Ellie brought Flo out for a week. The two of them came out and visited us for a week. The siblings all loved Flo. We had a great time, or Alan. And he and I, being the same age, we just really hit it off, had a lot of common interests. One thing we learned to do, or didn't learn to do, one thing we realized we liked to do together was play chess. We got into that, and as we parted ways, we agreed we were going to play chess by mail. For you younger folks, yes, that was a thing, chess by mail. You'd make your move, and a week later, your opponent would get the letter. We kept in touch that way for several years, and we probably finished one game of chess, but it was fun, and it was a way for us to keep in touch with each other, which we did over the years. Didn't see him again for a while. His next contact with my family was when he and Barry were on the famous westward trek. I didn't realize it was 2 months, oh my God. And they spent a few days in Colorado with my sister Judy, and then headed down here to Southern Cal. A couple years later, I reconnected with Flo again when I came down here for a business trip, and that's when he was on Glencoe that you mentioned when you were talking about him. Maybe we might have met then. I came down, I had budgeted an extra day in my trip. I was going to spend some time with my cousin I hadn't seen for a while. But halfway through that day, I realized this is not long enough, so I changed my trip, my return flight, stayed another couple days, had a blast. As those of you who did not know Flo before he was sober, you get a little sense of it, but the boy could party. We had a great weekend. I went home exhausted, but my life was changed because this guy was going to be a part of my life from then on. In our lives, we had some similarities. We both got married. He got married a few years after I did, but we both started our family about the same time. My kids, Chelsea and Colin, keep in touch with Luke and Zach. They're about the same age. They keep in touch with them outside our big family gatherings, which really warms my heart because Flo and Susan are such special family to me. I just want to make sure I don't miss some things. Bear with me for just a second. And then I guess in recent years, Flo and I, we would see each other 4 or 5 times a year. Our big thing was at Christmas, which I'll talk about when the whole family came up. But Flo, my family would sometimes come down through Southern Cal. Maybe we'd be going to Disneyland or Magic Mountain, and we'd connect with them. We went on a trip, the 2 families together to Mexico once. So we had some really good family stuff going. And then he'd come up to the Bay Area regularly. He'd come up, I think Barry came up with him one time. We went to see Buster Poindexter, Hot. Yeah, that was you, okay. And he'd bring friends up to go see a Grateful Dead or one of the Dead spin-offs. Or I'd join him to see Springsteen a couple times. And one of the best concerts I ever saw was the Wrecking Ball tour. But the big thing, and what I really want to focus my last couple minutes on is the Christmas gatherings we had. Excuse me. My wife Crystal and I had moved into a new house about 16 years ago, and it was a big house, huge living room, great for family gatherings. You recall me having all those siblings. My mom and I got together then. We got on all our siblings. We said, "You're coming to our house this Christmas. We're having the big reunion, the big family gathering, and we're also going to invite our cousins." So all my siblings came, Flo and family came. A new tradition was born. Every year since then, Flo family have come up. I think they've been outside of the folks who live right in the Bay Area with me. They've been our most regular out-of-town attendees at this great event. And I think we had like close to 30 people at the first one, so there were a ton of people. And of course, Flo, we know Flo. We've talked about his generosity, and boy, some great stories, wow. But he's Flo. He's got to get presents for everyone. He didn't get a present for everyone. He got presents for everyone. Amazing. And of course, that meant my job ended up being the Christmas gift list counselor, because he'd say, okay, what size sweater does Dennis wear? And what color do you think Kathy would like these shoes? Would this scarf look good on Chelsea? Times 28 or 30 every year. So, but it was a lot. He was so diligent about it. It was really fun. But a few other memories that I'm just going to go through the list before I wrap up and let you move on. So these are just some random Christmas things that happened. So the boy loved cashews. So I used to get the big Costco jars of cashews. And we'd go through a couple. So I had to make sure the cashews were there, because he would just stand in our kitchen. We'd be, shooting the crap, and he'd just go through them all. It was great. I think I mentioned a lot of presents and a lot of shopping. He hit the malls. I mean, he kept brick and mortar in business. It was amazing. He'd go morning, afternoon, night, and he'd get all these presents. The presents had to be wrapped. So, you know, I love the stories about Luke and Zach being the car parkers, or maybe it's mostly Luke's friends. Well, Luke and Zach, my kids' friends ended up being the present wrappers, and they got a little, you know, a little Christmas booty to go to spend, but mountains of presents. I mentioned we had a big living room where all the family gathered. We had what Flo would call a huge tree, but like 10-foot high tree. That tree would get buried by the presents that were more than half of them were the ones Flo brought to, you know, to our gathering. Of course, it was Christmas time. NFL playoffs were on, so every Saturday and Sunday and every Monday night he was in front of the TV, and some of you may have been in his football pools, and I'd hear you on the phone with him, and it was really fun to watch, and also be a part of it with him. When he wasn't shopping and watching football, he'd take a nap, and the guy napped almost every day. He could nap on the couch, on the chair, but you know, you got to give him a little slack because he was up closing the mall at 11 or 12 at night. He was up first thing in the morning going on the coffee run and going out to get bagels. So bagels is the one other story I'm going to spend just an extra second on because it's so Flo. So there was a family-owned bagel shop in downtown near where I live, and I've been going there for decades. I hadn't been a lot in the last 5 or 10 years, but Flo picked up on that. So breakfast for us was bagels every day when he came for Christmas, and he'd come for a week, sometimes a little more. But he'd go down to the bagel shop, and it was usually he'd go down there with Zach, and they, you know, he'd get his coffee. They'd go to the bagels, and he'd bring bagels and cream cheese back, and we'd have, you know, bagels every day, and he'd go every couple of days. Well, one time, maybe Zach was busy. I accompanied Flo on the bagel run, and I walk in, and I'm thinking, you know, I know the folks behind the counter. I kind of wave, and I say hi, and they kind of nod. And Flo walks in, and for those of you who ever watched Cheers, it was like Norm coming into the bar. I mean, it's like, Flo, how you doing? I'm going, wait a minute, this is my town. So it was so Flo. It was so priceless. It made me glow just to see how Flo, you know, it was the way he worked. You all have experienced Flo. You know what I mean. Other things that happened. Did I mention we had a lot of gifts? Did I mention cashews? Had to restock cashews. Did I mention shopping? He did a lot of shopping. And of course, he'd go to a meeting or two. He was, as Zach related in his story, you know, he's on the phone. I don't think he put a lot of his sponsees on speakerphone when I was around, so that's probably a good thing. But, you know, he's on a phone supporting and giving love to his people a lot. You know, other things we do, we'd maybe go on a hike. We always love to hike together. You know, he's pretty active. We drive around, look at Christmas lights, because there were some nice displays on a couple streets near my house. And of course, the big thing, Christmas Day, we'd have the big feast, all the families there. Sometimes we'd have upwards of 35 people, but we'd have about 5 tables spread out over our big living room, you know, turkey, ham, side dishes, desserts, just having a great time. And we'd finish it off with presents. Did I mention presents? And then we'd play some games at the end of the night. Those Christmas gatherings, I've always had this, I'm going to get there. This thing about Christmas, it's a really special time for me. I love being with my family. I'm sorry. So I was really aware of just, you know, kind of something Susan was talking about, time. And so I made a point the last few times, probably the last 5 or 6 times when he would leave, I would say, hey, I just really appreciate you coming here and sharing your family. Then, of course, he made it. He made it Christmas for so many people. And, you know, it wasn't just the gifts, but it was Flo. You know, and in light of why we're here today, I'm just so glad that I had that connection, you know, on top of all the other stuff we had. I also know that, you know, from spending non-holiday time with him, this wasn't a holiday thing, you know, as many of you have related. This was him 24/7, late at night with Steven Tyler on the phone in Russia or whenever he was there, you know, or maybe you'd have to leave a message, but he was so online, so available, so generous. So he was my cousin, he was my friend, he was my brother, I don't like Barry. You know, cuz we were so lucky to have you. I just hope and pray that, however imperfectly, I reflect some of your love to the people in the world around me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's getting late, so we're just gonna do a few people. So, where's cousin Kathy? Are you out there somewhere? And then where's Michael? Michael W. Are you there, Michael? Oh, yeah, come on. What? I mean, come on. The party.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say some of you might have seen some cards with my dad on them lying around. If you're interested, there's cards over there on the table, right to my left, with quotes by him and a picture of him. And if y'all were willing to take them and put them in your wallets or wherever you want to keep them, it would mean the world to me and to my mother. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Zachary. Thank you, Lucas, and thank you, Susan, and all of you. Oh my God, whether I even ever met you, I mean, I know I've met like a lot of you guys, and there's so much family. Anyways, I'm cousin Kathy, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm so blessed. So I wrote it down so I just make it quick and sweet. I met cousin Flo about 48 years ago when his mama Ellie came to visit her sister, my mama, Flo's Aunt Ginny. And I've been privy to knowing him as many things, one of those things being a crazed, wild card game player that would, one of the funniest ones you'd ever want to see. So the other side of him, besides the good old boy that shows up in AA, that guy, you get him at the family table with the rest of us, 20 of us sitting at one table playing Nerds. It's a speed game of cards. And you'd better keep your eye on him, especially when he first started, because he'd be apt to grab cards and be throwing them all in different directions, whether he knew what he was doing or not, and he would win. And it's like, so you had to really keep your eye on him. I believe he's one of the richest men I've ever known, and I have no idea what kind of financial background he has at all. It's not about that. From my knowledge of him, he was so rich in his love. He would keep it real at times. He wouldn't completely let up on me being his sober cousin through the years, but there were times when he would sort of impose himself just a little bit and ask me, hey, how many meetings you been getting to? Or, how many people are you sponsoring, Kath? But he would leave it at that. He spent a lot of time when he did come to Christmas running out to a meeting in the morning after he got the bagels and brought them back. He just did so much for so many people. I still find it really difficult to fathom, especially with Facebook and seeing videos of him. I can't understand how that's going to happen at Christmas time, that we're not going to have him. But when I see those videos, I think he's still partly here, and takes a little bit of time to understand loss from what I've experienced through the years. And I'm just going to read one little excerpt. I was trying to think of something good to say, and that was the best I could do. There's a book that I just had handy recently, and I had taken a little picture of a paragraph, and it's from a book called Life Lessons by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And this particular paragraph that stood out to me at the time, not too long ago, during the COVID time, because I experienced just that low a lot. This particular paragraph says, in many ways, if life is a school, loss is a major part of the curriculum. As we experience loss, we also experience those we love, and sometimes even strangers, caring for us in our time of need. Loss is a hole in our heart, but it is a hole that calls forth love and can hold love from others. So that's what I've experienced a lot in the last couple of weeks since the notice of Flo going. Man, I got on the first Zoom meeting with Brian and a couple of the other guys that day. And immediately there was this, oh my God, I'm not alone. And that's what it's about. And the other thing I just wanted to share was when I first got sober, my father had given me a verse. And for anybody that struggles, some of these things are the things that we'll hold on to when we're going up and down. And that verse was just one that was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It said, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll make straight your path. And that's been the verse that's kept me kind of like 1 minute at a time sometimes when all feels lost. That there's always going to be another day. And I agree, we're going to hold him in our hearts. And we're going to keep you guys in our family so close that you're not going to be able to not hear from us all the time. And I hope that we learn to be better people because of Flo. Thank you.
Chris Carlson, are you here? Yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm Michael. How do you break down into 1 minute somebody who meant so much to you and basically gave you a second chance at life? Susan and Zach and Lucas, thank you for sharing your dad with us. And Lucas, my best friend, thank you for introducing me to Flo 6 years ago. I had the privilege of going through the steps with Flo, and it was an amazing experience. Other than my dad and my grandfather, Flo was the most important person in my life and embodied all the principles that he taught us more than anybody in this world. And I'll forever be grateful for him, and I'll miss him dearly. I'll tell you a quick story. You know, he always had a way of right-sizing me. And it was after making my first amends, and I was so excited, and I had this glow on my face, and it went way better than I ever expected. And I said, Flo, it went better than I expected, just like he had said. I feel like I made the team. And he goes, you did. He goes, but we didn't set the bar very high. And it was those kind of things that kept me in my right place. And I'm going to miss him, man. This is amazing to see this, only for Flo. Thank you, guys.
Hey, I'm Chris, and I was a friend of Flo's. I knew him from that club where we, I don't want to break his anonymity, but we told stories. We told a lot of stories, and we drank a lot of coffee. And it was about 10 years ago, and I had this guy sponsoring me, and I wasn't working anymore. I would call him. I wouldn't talk to him for weeks. And this guy, Mike White, who I have susceptible feelings about, said, you should get this guy Flo to sponsor you. So I saw him at the log cabin. I said, would you sponsor me? And he said, yeah. And he took me out to dinner with my daughter one morning, and we started talking. And he said, this is what you do. You call me every day, and we'll meet at meetings, and we'll do this, and we'll do that. And I started calling him every day, and I would whine, wah, wah, wah. And at the end, I would feel so bad. I would be like, I can't believe I just unloaded this load of shit on this poor guy, you know? And he would listen and be like probably talking to somebody else in the car and have me on mute or something. And eventually the whole thing of my conversation with him would change, and I'd tell him what I'm doing and and it changed, not just the thing that I would say to him, but it changed the way that I thought and the way that I lived and the way that I entertained my day, you know? And when I was a little kid, my mom worked at this fashion magazine, and she went to Egypt. And she came back, it was like, I was 5 years old, it was 1965. And she had these books on the pyramids, and she was like, oh my God, it's incredible over there. The pyramids are huge, and blah, blah, blah. And she got me really interested. So then there was the King Tut show came to New York, and I went to it. That was in like 1980. And then about 2 years ago, it came to LA again, and I went with my daughter. And I never saw this before, but it said, a man dies 2 deaths. The first one when his body dies, and the second one when people stop saying his name. And I was sitting there, and it occurred to me, like, Flo's going to live on for a long time. Amen. Because we all talk about him. And as long as all of us live, we're all going to be talking about Flo. And I don't want to take too long, but I'll just say some of the brightest lights burn but briefly. And Greg called me up on that Wednesday morning, was it 3.5 or 4.5 weeks ago, and he says, listen, I got bad news. Are you sitting down? And Greg never calls me. In fact, we just found out that he had been blocked. His phone had blocked me. And I was like, what's he talking about? I was like, what could have happened? And he said, are you sitting down? I was at my desk. I sit down. And he said, Flo Lawrence passed away this morning. And I thought, when he's joking, but you wouldn't joke about something like that. And I was like, oh my God. And I think I called Jimmy, and I called a couple other guys, and then my phone started ringing, and people are calling me, asking me if I'm all right. because I guess I went around saying, hey, Flo is my sponsor, and they were all worried about me, you know? And I was like, yeah, and we spoke the whole day, and then we went to a meeting. It was Wednesday night. We went to that meeting. We talked about Flo all night. And then I got home, and it was that memorial meeting, and I was like, I kind of talked. I've talked and listened all I can do. And all I want to say is, Godspeed, Flo. We miss you here, but I know they're welcoming you over there. And thank you for letting me know you.
Hey, Victor, and then Brian. Brian, you close it. You did the last one. Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Victor Schwartz. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I wrote out my feelings about Flo the second day after I heard the news. So I'm just going to read it because if I just speak off the cuff, there's no way I'll be able to get through it without crying. I've had the pleasure and the honor of having Flo as my friend for 31 and a half years. I played basketball with Flo after Jocelyn Park meeting. I think Flo played baseball with us after 14th and Olympic. I had countless fellowship meals, either before or after meetings. I went to sporting events with Flo. I experienced the greatest little house band in the land with Flo many times. Flo was at my wedding. Flo helped me move apartments and always told, whenever Flo spoke at a meeting, he told the couch story, which is that we took this big, giant couch over a second-story balcony and got it through the sliding glass door. I was asked to help others move by Flo. Let's see. I'm sorry, I got lost. I was asked by Flo to help others work steps. I worked the steps with Flo both before I was ready and then finally after getting sober. He gave me the same attention both times. I went to meetings that he spoke at because he would let me know. I had Flo speak at every meeting I was ever honored to be the secretary of. I went to the bar he worked at and the clubs he worked at. I helped him find someone in my business, and Flo helped me find someone in our business. Flo is a really good friend. I didn't have to speak with Flo all the time, and as time lapsed and then we talked, the conversation and connection picked up at the most intimate levels instantly. I laughed with Flo, I cried with Flo. I have tons of Flo stories. Flo is in my story. Flo taught me how to be of service and told me to tether that to something other than myself, because I owed. Flo showed me how to be a father. Flo showed me how to be a husband, even while he was doing it as an ex-husband. Flo also taught me how to be one of the most admired people in the room without ever trying to be. He made me feel like the most important person in the room. Flo always told me that I was a bright light and that the world needed me. For a really long time, I found that incredibly hard to believe. And I'm not saying that I completely believe it now, but it's closer to belief now because Flo showed me how to love someone before they could love themselves. If you're hearing this and nodding and identifying and relating and saying, yep, he did that for me, you're not alone. I feel I had this special relationship with Flo, and I was very aware that he had this kind of relationship with others. I'm completely in awe of knowing just how many others now. There are so many special people in this world. Then there are people that are just a little bit more elevated than the rest, just a cut above. I knew when I was around Flo, I was in the presence of such a person, and that others felt that way. Now I know that it wasn't merely others, it was everybody. Flo, I'll cherish the moments we had together and honor our friendship by continuing to aspire through action to use your example to fill my life with fun, love, and service.
I think this is at the end. I think one thing for sure, we were lucky to know the man. And with that, I counted close to 250 people here today. And we have a little issue where we have 2 bathrooms for the girls inside the house, and we have 8 acres of area for the men. So you guys can, it's just time to go, whatever. So Anyhow, I'm sure glad you made it, and Susan, the boys.
That's what needs in your life, brother. Good job.
We're going to do two things here tonight before we leave. One of the things that Flo and I love to do in part of our meditations, we just love the Hindu mantras. So we're going to do a 6-minute, 8-syllable Hindu mantra, which will be to music, and it's called Om Namo Narayanaya. And what that means is that we're going to help a flow to ascend to the highest of the heavens. And it also helps with those of us that are left behind to help us to find the peace that flow is gone. And that's approximately 6 minutes, and then I will say a final prayer, and you are all free to go, but continue to be safe.
Om Namo One of the greatest tools we possess to come together with the presence of what created us is to be still and to simply go within. Know this with me now, that all of the paths we have chosen in our lives, all those stories, those novels, those plays, both nonfiction and fiction that we've created consciously and unconsciously, have brought us to the person that we are today. Let's make a conscious choice to look at what has happened in the past and just call it good, no matter what the response was at the time of that particular moment. Today, we're going to call it good. We have so many characters in our stories. There are those that we have loved with all of our heart, and there are those that we have had to let go. They brought us to who we are today. They taught us something valuable. They revealed something within our hearts and our soul. And they built our character. So let's call it good. Each and every step we have taken on this journey, though it appears we are alone on our own individual roads, it's just not true. We are guided by invisible hands and by an intuitive wisdom that lives inside each of us. Let's take some time now to be still, to listen to that guidance, to be in its presence. Let's just be still and listen. I came here today to draw a line between the person I have been with Flo and the person I will now become without his physical presence, although I know his spiritual presence is always near me. From this day forward, when I look behind me to all that has happened in my past, I will choose to see it in the light of love. I will choose to see it through the eyes of forgiveness. Forgiveness is our most valuable spiritual tool. And as I turn and look toward my future, I will choose to turn toward the light. I know that Flo would never want me to wander in the darkness. I will choose to see happiness and enthusiasm there. I will choose to trust that the greatest and highest good for me is always on its way to me. I believe that there is something pulling us all toward that good. Let's just trust that. Let it have its way with us and be led into it. And so it is. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Go out, be safe, wear those masks. And thank you for making the exception tonight to not social distance. I know that wasn't the plan, but I appreciate everybody coming. Thank you.
Thank you.